All right, music fans, welcome. Harmless Dave here, talking real music in real time for real people just like you and just like me. Great book that I finished about a month or so ago, Street Player, My Chicago Story by former Chicago drummer Danny Seraphin, who now has his own band called CTA, that's California Transit Authority. Really doing a great job being authentic as far as the old Chicago. The book is a really good book because it documents some very big events in the band's history, including the time that Jimi Hendrix said that Terry Kath was better than him. It also talks about when Peter Cetera left the band. It also talks about when Danny Seraphin was fired from Chicago, which I don't believe should have happened, but in any event, it did. And it also talks about the tragic and untimely death of Terry Kath. Now, there are whole groups I know on Facebook and elsewhere that want to get to the bottom of what they think really happened to Terry Kath. I explored that avenue for a little while, and I've now, after reading the book, am starting to rethink what might have happened to Terry Kath. You know, the whole story basically revolves around the fact that Terry Kath was cleaning a firearm. All right. And then he said to his musical assistant or his guitar tech, who I think it was his party or at his house, that, look, there are no bullets in this gun. Don't worry, everything's going to be fine. He put the thing up to his head, pulled the trigger, and boom, that was it. And Terry was gone. Now, if you look at the band's history, and again, this is speculation, I'm just putting it out there. You don't have to agree with this, but at least you can follow some of the logic here. On the first three Chicago albums, Terry Kath was used a lot more as a firebrand guitarist, a just off the hook, psychedelic, all the different things. He could pretty much play anything you wanted in his sleep. And if you watch, say, Chicago Live at Tanglewood, which is, it's almost like they're a different band at that point. They are something that, you know, they're not anymore. In that scene, they are pretty much the best band you'll ever see. I mean, they are hitting on all cylinders, and Terry Kath is allowed to just really cut loose and to be what Jimi Hendrix thought of him. Jimi Hendrix must have seen that performance. I don't know if that was before Hendrix did his quote or after, but any of the live performances, that's why the whole Carnegie Hall remaster is such an interesting project right now, where they're actually getting much cleaner and clearer audio. And you're going to be able to hear Terry Kath. You're going to be able to hear the horn section. Very historic event at Carnegie Hall, I believe in 1971. And again, Terry Kath really on top of his game. But if you just keep going through the band's history, somebody probably said, look, you guys can't do these super long albums anymore, right? No more double length albums, even though by today's standards, I don't think they go over 70 minutes or 75 minutes. Maybe they do. But the point is, you could still fit the entire thing on one CD. But back in those days, it was a big deal, more expensive to package it and do the artwork. And you had 2 albums instead of 1. So you had to charge a lot more. And typically people didn't want to spend the money on a double album. But the band, not only did they shift away from, you know, putting out too much music per album, they also shifted their style quite a bit. This is when we heard like Color My World, Just You and Me. By the way, Terry Kath sings lead vocals on Color My World. Wishing You Were Here, where Peter Cetera comes up with this great idea to have Terry sing the lower parts of the song where his voice fit better. And then, of course, the Beach Boys are on that record. Terry Kath is probably thinking to himself, hey, what happened to this like avant-garde cutting edge jazz rock fusion band. We are now becoming a pop rock band, and Peter Cetera is starting to become more and more important because he's writing really good songs. Let's just be honest. I mean, you know, Robert Lamb, who was a great songwriter in the early days, seemed to have difficulty as time went on. And I don't know if that was because of substance abuse, lack of focus, the record label basically saying, hey, good job, Peter. Robert, why can't you be more like Peter? You've been in those situations. You know, I've been at jobs where, why can't you be more like Bob? And I'm sitting there going, okay, well, I'm Dave, I'm not Bob. But anyway, it's just bad flashback here in the middle of this video. So if you look at that and you look at how much they used to use Terry, and then how as time progressed, he wasn't as important. Did he even play on If You Leave Me Now? I don't know if he did or he didn't. The point is he didn't have to. Just an acoustic guitar, and it's kind of this just whimsical solo. I'm thinking he might have, but I'd have to check the song credits. I mean, he's the guy who straps on that famous guitar and just unloads. I mean, just go watch Chicago at Tanglewood, right? It's just insane how crazy that band is. And it's almost like Chicago is a jazz punk rock band. I mean, they're not your grandma's band at that point. They later on, you know, they got this reputation of being like the soft rock band, and Walt Parazater was on a couple of different specials where he said, you know, deliver another ballad. And that's what the record label probably wanted. And Terry probably didn't want to do that. And I know Terry, you know, had substance abuse issues. I know that Terry Kath could probably drink everybody under the table. He was a big guy, and everybody said he was kind of like this big teddy bear kind of character. But could it have been that Terry was getting a bit frustrated with his life? You know, hey, I'm this great guitarist. I'm in this very successful band, but I'm really not contributing the way that I think I could. And I think he had a conversation with Robert Lamb where they both agreed that more or less the industry itself wanted a bunch of crap. This is what they wanted. And Chicago, through Peter Cetera, was delivering the crap. And so they didn't have really a way around that. They were kind of locked into that. So who knows? Maybe Terry knew that there was a bullet that was chambered in that gun. Maybe he knew. I'm not saying he did. I mean, he was drinking a lot apparently that night. And, you know, you kind of lose perspective when you drink a lot. And it could be just all of those things. His friend begged him, said, no, don't do it. Don't do what you're doing. Don't put that, you know, he begged him not to put the gun up to his head, according to Danny Seraphin. And if that's all true, and it was just, you know, a big mistake and a horrible accident, then that's what it was. And I'm sure the majority of people who know the situation well would probably speak to that and say, you're crazy. He wouldn't do that. But maybe he would, because Chicago didn't seem to really need his services anymore in the way that he was being used early on in Chicago's existence. Again, I may be way off base, but, you know, I think he might have been even more depressed because the industry had changed. It wasn't this psychedelic jazz rock band that they began. It wasn't this FM radio kind of underground thing. It made them all very successful, but the music itself had changed to kind of fit what the record label wanted, what Jimmy Guercio wanted them to do, which was to become like the Buckinghams, you know, or another band, or Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Those were bands that Guercio managed. And he had great success on AM radio with those bands. And I think he wanted to kind of mold Chicago into that same hit-making machine. And he did. He did. He said, no more, you know, 8-minute songs here. We need 3-minute songs. I mean, Make Me Smile got on the radio because they decided to edit the track. I mean, Jimmy Pankow talks about that. So bottom line here is that maybe there was more to it than just the mistake of thinking there were no bullets in that gun. Maybe, just maybe, he knew that there was a bullet in the gun. And I'm hoping that's not true, because that would put, sort of a sad spin on this story. But nobody, I think, will ever know. That's the thing. I mean, if there are people who actually know, that don't want to come forward because they don't want to ruin what was a really good life up until that point. In other words, they don't want to say, hey, he took his own life, which he did technically, but not maybe on purpose. So anyway, that's my perspective on this. I know there are a lot of people out there that have sent me messages saying you should really dig into this because you'd win an award or something. I had one person say you could be, a great investigative journalist on this. And I would say I'm not really that close to that situation. I would have to know somebody who is really close to that situation who could tell me the details. And I'm sure they're going to tell me, and I'm sure they're going to want Terry's memory to be of somebody who did this by accident. I mean, I've heard Robert Lamb say, no, don't go there. It didn't happen that way. It was an accident. And I think everybody wants to believe that. People who are close to Terry and people who love the music of Chicago, especially Terry's work in the band, they want Terry to be remembered as the guy who lived a little too crazy and paid the ultimate price for living a little too crazy. And we'll just leave it there. But, you can decide for yourself. By the way, again, this is a great book, and it covers that, and it covers really everything you'd want to know about Chicago. Danny Serafin comes off a little bit like a hothead in this book, and he admits it. He admits that he's got, kind of a crazy Italian temper, which at times did him in. But I think his passion for the band, one thing he did do, which nobody else seemed to want to do in the band, is to kind of audit the books a little bit and kind of find out, hey, how is this sausage being made? And the other guys were like, yeah, we just want to make music. Danny, stop doing this stuff. This isn't really your job. Well, nobody else was doing it. And then Jimmy Pankow in the documentary admits that, as he said, millions of dollars. And he said it over and over again. Or the way he said it was like to make a point that millions of dollars were basically being skimmed off the books and put into the pocket of the guy who was managing the band, who I think at the time was Jimmy Guercio. So that's when you sign a contract and you don't know what you're signing. Probably wasn't anybody's fault but the band for not, looking at what they were doing. So in any event, interesting speculation here, nothing concrete. I don't know anything for sure about this. All I know is that leading up to Terry Kath's unfortunate and untimely death, I don't think he was a happy camper with the way things were going in the band Chicago. And then you couple that with alcohol and substance abuse, and it's it's just a sad and unfortunate circumstance. All right, so that's the video on the topic. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If you want to reach out to me on Patreon, it costs $1 a month to join Patreon. That's where we can talk about this if you're interested, and I will talk to you all soon.